So you decide, I'm going to start a business. That's a step you want to take. You've gone through the whole process of your skills. You've assessed a market. You think you got some customers. I'm going to start a business. What do I do now? Hashim Chaudhry has all the answers to those questions. He's going to share them with us now. Hashim, how do you start a business? What do you do?
Well, the beauty of living in Canada is that you do not need to register in a business in Canada to do business for the most part, for most people. For certain specific industries, yeah, you can probably look into, you might need to incorporate, get trademarks and things like that. And we'll talk about that today. But for starters, if you're just starting a small gig on the side, you do not need to register a business in Canada. Meaning, for example, if you're doing photography on the side, you can do it. You don't need to register a name. You don't need to incorporate. You don't need to get an HST number to initiate the business. Now, some of those things, especially HST, we're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. Hopefully, we have time for that. That it might be best for you, but generally speaking, you don't need to register a business. You're required to claim income earned from it. Reporting expenses is your choice. So for many people who have jobs and now leaving the corporate world into what you call the business life, starting a business, it could be very easy. You don't need to register anything. In our previous video, we spoke about on how you can report all your expenses in a particular year that you're just starting, and counter all those losses against the income that you're going to earn and generate yourself some nice refunds. So again, don't need to register to do anything to do business in Canada for the most part.
Just a quick answer. In the States, you may need to register. If anybody's watching from the United States?
State to state, it varies.
State to state varies.
In States, again, for the most part, you do not need to register for the most part. Again, certain industries it's designed in a such way that you must. But for the most part, people doing, these days it's gig economy, right, everywhere. So everybody working from home, doing small things here and there. You don't need to register anything. But yes, you do need to report income. I do want to make sure I clarify that.
So you can report, you do report the income. You do claim the expenses, right, because you are a business.
Yes.
Is there anything you have to do that says, I'm a business, or do you just start doing it? Claim the income and claim the expenses.
You don't need that for most parts. Again, certain sectors are such, but for most part, people doing small gigs here and there, you don't need, or even selling product, you don't need. Now, HST registration or import-export numbers, these might be added benefits that they're going to help you keep more money in your pocket. But to do it, no, nothing's stopping you from doing it.
When do you need to register?
So let's talk about HST, number one. This is the one thing I see a lot of people have a lot of wrong information on this. In Canada, if you have $30,000 in revenue in 12 rolling months, and that's not a calendar year, it's a 12 rolling month period. So that's the first myth I want to bust. It's 12 rolling months that you hit $30,000. You now must register for a HST account. Now, another thing in there, once you're HST registered, let's say you're sole prop and or self-employed, and you're HST registered, that's a blanket registration. So if you're doing multiple gigs on the side, now you need to collect HST on all of them. Now, HST, certain industries are exempt. For example, mortgage agents cannot be HST registered, insurance people. There are certain financial, for the most part, or healthcare, where people cannot be HST registered. So again, talk to your accountant, but HST is one point where you have to. Now, again, if we just go down to like you have to, yes, HST is usually the first one. But many things, for example, if you want to secure a name, you might want to go with a federal corporation. You might want to register a business so you can register a trademark. So those could be, added things. But do you have to? No. For the most part, it's revenue side. If you hit 30, you now have to. If you have employees, where again we have to really define what an employee and a subcontractor are. If you have employees, let's say, and I'm not going to go into that discussion on who is an employee and a subcontractor, it gets pretty lengthy. But if you're an employee, yes, you need to get a payroll account for that. If you're doing imports and exports, now, yes, you do need to do registration for an import and export number. Now, for the most part, the business number always stays the same. It's a code that changes. It's an added account on the business number. For example, if you're incorporated already, you have an RC001, 9-digit, and an RC001. You get a HST, it's now an RT001. If you go with a payroll, it's an RP001, and so on, so on and so forth. So again, from a requirement standpoint, HST is usually the first one. If you have employees, that's the second one, but you really don't need to. Now, a lot of the other structures we have, those are voluntary and they help you. And we'll talk about incorporation and stuff down the road as well.
Yes, before we get to incorporation, because, you know, that's an important step for someone. We talked about trademarking a name. What is the advantage of trademarking a name?
Well, of course, you first have to look at one thing. A lot of times I get these queries. Is it really worth it? Okay, first of all, it's expensive as hell. And they're based on regions. For example, if you go to a lawyer to get a trademark done, just for Canada, you're probably paying $1,500 to $2,000 for a basic trademark done. Now, if you want to go into states, each state, you got to spend anywhere from $500 to $1,100 per state. And then each country, now there's some international trademarks in there as well. But generally speaking, you end up spending a lot of money on it for something that you have to renew after every 5 years. Now, trademark as it's in itself, it's not something that will stop people from doing something, okay? It's literally just saying that, hey, I have this. You shouldn't be doing this. But if you are going to do this, I'm going to take you to court. So if you manufacture something that somebody in China or somewhere else in the world are literally going to duplicate, well, do you have resources to go challenge something in China? So a lot of times, you know, clients come to me and say, I have this course or this intellectual property. And I tell them, hey, listen, only go that far once your business is ready to launch, and you're making enough money in it that you can afford this and justify this expense. Otherwise, don't go down that route.
So you got to be making a lot of money for that one.
Not really. I mean, potential, right? Like if I'm creating something like, say, this particular item over here, I know this is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Even though I have not gone into production and it's still in the R&D stage, I know the moment it hits the market, it's going to go. If you know that for certain, or you can reasonably make sure, like, you know, look into that. Now, there's a trademark and there's a patent, okay? Two different things. Trademark is generally the name kind of thing. Patent, it's more so associated to technology and stuff. Again, a lot of times people say we're going to do it ourselves. You can do it, but you know, it's got to be done properly, and you need to deal with specialized lawyers who do this, because if something goes wrong, you want to make sure you can go back to the lawyer, and that lawyer has affiliation across the country or in different parts of the world to enforce that particular name and things like that.
So I'm going to resist the urge to trademark my Colby Vision hats. I don't think I'm going to sell that many. Probably save that money on something else. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about incorporation. That is something I just dove into without asking a lot of questions. And you and I have talked about that before. When should somebody incorporate?
Well, there's 3 reasons why somebody should incorporate, and these are the only 3 reasons. If one of them becomes significantly important for you or a requirement, you incorporate. So the first one, business sense. So business sense, what I like to explain in that is you're in an industry where, for example, you cannot do business. For example, certain businesses won't deal with you if you're not incorporated. You won't get contracts if you're not incorporated. So you want to get incorporated then. You want to look nice. You know, a lot of times I find people who want to get fancy titles like director of this, director of that, where the company has really made $0 so far. Mm-hmm. So if doing that makes you happy, or if you feel that putting that on your business card will help you get more business, well, then definitely it makes business sense. That either you're restricted to do business in that category, or, you know, so it needs to make business sense. The other one is legal. That's number 2. Now, we all know that for the most part, corporations will give you an added layer of protection, what some people like to call it as limited liability. Now, Canada, we only generally have one entity, like a corporation. You can be provincial or federal, but from a legal perspective, now some lawyers will argue me, but for a day-to-day average Joe, it's kind of like the same thing. It provides a limited liability in there. Now, I do want to add one thing to it. Professionals, for example, if an accountant forms a corporation, he does not have limited liability. A lawyer does not have a limited liability. A real estate agent does not have a limited liability, because we are held at a higher standard. So if something happens, you know, people can come to Hashim's home over here. So we got to be really careful on that. Always discuss this with the lawyer, because as an accountant, I can only maybe express an opinion, but you should always refer to a lawyer about legal protection. Now, insurance, some people can mediate this by getting business insurance on their self-employed business. But for some people, like, you know, here's my pet peeve. A lot of times I see people have locations, physical locations, like restaurants or spas, and they're operating as a self-employed business. Oh, and they say, Hashim, we're just starting. I'm like, no, you should be incorporated, because if somebody trips and falls and dies, you know, no matter how much your insurance covers you, it's not covering you for a thing like that. Mm-hmm. So definitely talk to a lawyer. If legal is something that, now again, I do want to add one more thing to it. North Hill was a classic example. Incorporation had a board, but the board was found to be committing fraud. In their particular cases, the court overruled and said, now your personal assets are also on stake. So it wasn't only limited to the corporation, it also went. So yes, it provides limited liability, but it's not a blank check for anybody. If you're going to commit fraud, and if you're going to do things which are funny, yes, limited liability will protect you from accidents, things that were not in your control. But if you're going in intentionally and you're found guilty of that, the court might go over and beyond the corporation as well.
So as a general rule, don't run a shady business.
That's never a good idea. You know, my God bless my father. He always used to say, Hashim, there's nothing in this world like sleeping good at night. You should be sleeping good at night. You know, there's nothing worthwhile, you know, messing around.
Well, let's get to that third reason.
The dollar amount.
Let's get to the third reason. One is a business reason. One is a legal reason. What is the third reason to incorporate?
And the third reason is taxes. Okay. Now, people say, Hashim, at what stage should I incorporate my business? I say at $45,000 of net income after expenses. Now, let's put it this way. You're line 150, because for some people, they have a business and an employment. If your line 150 is $45,000 or more, any additional money should be made in a corporation, because at $45,000, the cost of having a corporation and maintaining a corporation equals a tax benefit. Now, I do want to add one thing. If you have a self-employed business that's in a loss, and you have a full-time job for $100K, you don't incorporate right now, because the losses are bringing your income down, right? So only at 45, we start entertaining. So I should be very careful over here. We start entertaining the idea of incorporation. Anything below than that, continue operating as a self-employed. Now, within these three reasons that I said, if one or two or three, become eligible on applicable on you, you talk to an accountant or a lawyer if it's a legal matter, and get an expert opinion on this, because it might not still be for you. Because many times I find this is a funny one. People are not income splitting now. People don't know this. You can still income split when you're self-employed, right? So talk to an accountant who's going to show you how to write off almost everything, and then evaluate, do I need to incorporate from this point onwards, right? There has to be a going in strategy, and there has to be coming out strategy as well. And deal with someone who actually does deal with corporate taxes or corporations from a lawyer side. Don't just go and get opinion from just anybody who you think is an accountant or is a lawyer.
Okay, to sum up, you don't necessarily have to register. Check for your industry. Look into an HST. That's probably the first thing you're going to need. And when it comes to incorporating, there's a business reason, there's a legal reason, and then there's a tax reason. So if you're thinking about starting a business, these are the places to start. There aren't all the answers here. These are the questions you have to ask, the things you have to be aware of. And if you talk to a corporate accountant and a lawyer, they can give you all the answers to those questions.
Yes, because for everybody, like the situation differs so much for everybody. There's the concepts we're discussing over here today are just general concepts. They are not copy paste apply on all. So everybody's situation is different. For example, classic example, and we'll wrap it up from there, is somebody wants to get a mortgage. Well, you want to show more income on the line 150 then. Why would I take you into a corporation? Right? So we need to assess your situation, what's happening in your life. What avenues can we exercise right now to lower your tax brackets? And then from there, take a look, okay, is this the right move for you? And how do we go about it?
Hashim, thank you so much for sharing this information with people. I think it'll help a lot of people. It's a great place to start. And these are the things that people need to consider when they're thinking about starting a business.
Yes.
Thanks so much for your time.
You can always reach out to us.
Yes. This is a good guy. You want to talk to him. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your expertise.
Thank you. Take care.